Hello, I'm your host, Peter Komendowski, and welcome to Surviving Bad, where we explore Iowa's stories of survival, hope, and inspiration. Today we're talking about marijuana, and not your grandmother's marijuana from the 60s or 70s, but a powerful drug that's now being sold in places like Colorado and right across the river in Illinois, closer to Iowa than ever before. And it's pushing our substance abuse prevention and law enforcement community to its limits. We've invited Sergeant Steve Cundiff from Clinton County Sheriff's Department and Lauren Schwant from the Comanche DeWitt Substance Abuse Prevention Coalition to talk about the issues. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Well, Lauren, start us off. Tell us a little bit about what you do and what your coalition's focusing on.
Okay. My name is Lauren Schwant. I am the project coordinator for the Comanche DeWitt Coalition, and our coalition is a drug-free communities grant, so we do have a grant that is funded our coalition, but what we really focus on is youth prevention, and our two main focuses on the substances that we really want to focus on are underage drinking and marijuana. So it's a pretty big issue that we're seeing in our communities that we want to address.
And marijuana's grown a lot in stature.
Yes, yes.
And Steve, what brings you here today?
My name's Sergeant Steve Cundiff. I'm a detective with the Clinton County Sheriff's Office. I've been there for about 30 years. Back in the 90s, I was assigned to a drug task force where I worked marijuana cases. I worked a war on drugs, and I realized after doing that for about 10 years in the drug task force that we weren't going to arrest our way out of the problem. So I've become involved with the coalitions and working with the people and kind of trying to educate our youth and our adults about the issues out there.
Now, we often talk about a three-pronged approach with prevention, treatment, and then, of course, the law enforcement side of things. How would you say the community that we're looking at, especially bordering Illinois now with legalization of marijuana starting January 1st, how prepared are you in, say, Clinton County for the challenges that you may face?
I think it's going to be a challenge. I mean, right across the river, marijuana is going to be legal to possess. You can possess up to 30 grams over in Illinois, where it's still illegal in the state of Iowa. I mean, so now you have different states that have different laws, and the federal government still doesn't have it on the radar to legalize it as of right now. So it's confusing.
Now, Lauren, the argument has been by politicians that, well, since they're legal, we should get legal, so we get a piece of this pie. Mm-hmm. But you're closely involved with both the prevention community and the treatment community. What are your thoughts about that?
Legalizing, I'm hoping that it doesn't happen. We're bracing ourselves, I should say, for when Illinois does come legal, because we are literally right on the Mississippi River. We already have youth telling us that it's easy access to get their hands on marijuana, so I am anticipating once it's fully legal in Illinois, it's going to be even easier for them to get their hands on. So, I mean, we're trying to do as much prevention education to our parents, our students, on how much it has changed over the years, and hopefully we can prevent them from ever starting so that they don't have to end up in the treatment world.
Now, this has got to be a hard thing to do in a climate where everybody's trying to talk about how harmless and how helpful these things might be.
Yes.
Have we heard these conversations before, like about opioids and alcohol and tobacco?
Yes, we hear that often, and one of the perks of what I get to do is I actually get to go into our schools and talk directly to the youth, and we hear that time and time again. The youth, because it's legal in all these states, they think it's good, right? Because it's legal, why is it bad for me if states are legalizing it? So it's just a whole nother level that we're dealing with and trying to educate them to let them know, hey, it's not the same, it does have harms for you.
Now, Steve, on the enforcement side, there's no question that one of the components of marijuana is impairs people, their driving and other abilities. That puts a lot of pressure on that prong of enforcement. What do you see the challenges are going to be on, basically people crossing the river? How do you manage that kind of a threat?
It's going to be complicated. I mean, as far as the law enforcement side of it, we're going to have to put more DREs on the drug recognition officers, people driving impaired under the influence of the drugs. It's going to be complicated, and it's going to be more difficult for the law enforcement to enforce these laws.
And DREs are specially trained officers that can identify if somebody's impaired, much like you can identify a person impaired by alcohol.
Correct. Yeah.
Do we have officers like that in Clinton County?
Yes, we do. The State Patrol has several of them and assigned to our county now. It's a very extensive training. It's expensive to put these people on and keep them trained. So we have several of them in Clinton County right now.
Do you run into in law enforcement people that you are dealing with in maybe traffic stops and things that are starting to challenge police authority on the use of marijuana and stuff? Do you see an issue there?
Yes, we do. One of the problems we're already having conversations about is in Illinois, they have recreational marijuana coming January 1st of next year, and you can possess up to 30 grams. People are saying, if I can purchase it in Illinois, can I bring it over to Iowa? So we're already running into some
Well, we
of
know
those
the
conversations.
answer to that is what?
No, you
No,
can't.
absolutely.
It's still illegal in the state of Iowa. Yeah.
And we have a huge issue with what's the difference between CBD and THC, and I want to address that after the break. Let's hang on and get to that. When we come back, we'll take a look at that line between CBD and THC, both a part of the marijuana industry, but each very different, very different. You may be shocked. You don't want to miss this. See you after the break.
One gig is the future, and Mediacom provides the most complete coverage. America's first 100% 1 gig technology network, offering gigabit speeds in every market we serve. In town or out of town, big city or rural, you've got access to the fastest. We know the future will demand more speed, so we've built a network to give you the most. 1,500 communities, 2.7 million homes, 100% 1 gig.
After the rain stops and the wind dies down, when the fire's gone out and the dust settles, we rise up together and become a force of nature all our own. As part of this community, Mediacom stands with you, doing everything we can not only to restore your service, but to help provide emergency communication access, assist relief efforts, and support our neighbors.
AT&T loves to talk about their 1 gig internet, but you can't get it at Beth's house or John's house. It's not available in JoJo's neighborhood or within 100 miles of the Smith family. The truth is, AT&T 1 gig isn't for everyone. Make sure you have access to the fastest. Switch to Mediacom Extreme and get the future-forward speed you need. From the 100% gigabit technology network, the fastest for everyone.
Welcome back to Surviving Bad. We're talking with Lauren and Stephen about marijuana. There's a big secret that the marijuana industry doesn't want you to know about, and we're about to share it because all the marijuana controversy rests on keeping you, the consumer, in the dark about the difference between CBD and THC. We're about to make some sense about this confusing issue. Welcome back. Lauren, we hear a lot of stuff that says, well, CBD is fine because it doesn't impair you. THC is really dangerous. And yet most people that we talk to throughout Iowa and in the media think, well, we should legalize the marijuana based on the information that the CBD is not harmful, but it's not much talk about the THC. How do you address that in prevention?
It's tough. So one thing when we're trying to do the education, again, is when they're talking about medical marijuana, we're trying to tell them the difference between CBD and THC, because we know THC is the part of the plant that does get you high, but there hasn't been much research done on CBD, so we really don't know all the impacts that the CBD is going to have on a person, especially a youth where their brains are still developing until they're 25. So again, we're trying to distinguish, between the two, like you said, because CBD, they think CBD is good. They don't overlook, or they tend to overlook the THC, and they don't really know the difference there. And a lot of times with like the CBD products that are out there, we don't even know if they contain THC. A lot of them that we're seeing in our communities aren't even regulated, so we have absolutely no idea what's in there. And since there's not been much research on it, we really don't know what will happen.
Well, there's two industries that we're seeing in the country. One is a pure CBD industry, which, for all practical purposes, doesn't become a law enforcement issue. It could be they may be claiming more things than it needs. That's for the Attorney General to figure out. If they say it cures cancer and it doesn't, that's a lie. but we have really good evidence that says THC impairs people. Now, we live in a great democracy. We love laws that protect you from me and me from you, but we don't want to have laws that protect us from ourselves. But if those laws protect us from hurting ourselves, it's not such a bad deal. So we have a lot of effort expended on things like meth, alcohol, and then opioids, but nobody's talking about the social and regulatory cost of THC, if we separate the two. Steve, from a law enforcement point of view, is that a huge game changer when you start adding THC to the mix as compared to just CBD?
Yes. The THC levels in these marijuana plants has gone up about 20% over the years. The marijuana that they're growing in Colorado, California, is not the same marijuana that they grew back when I first started in law enforcement 30 years ago. It's now 20% higher. So the drug can be addicting now, is what we're finding out. So it's a lot stronger, it's a lot more, it's dangerous. And so the drug that the marijuana has changed, and people don't realize when we're talking about marijuana, they're still talking about the marijuana of 30 years ago. The marijuana of now is 20 to 30% higher in THC levels, so it is dangerous.
Well, and now we've even heard talk that there supposedly is a THCA that's completely synthesized, doesn't come from a plant at all, or doesn't have to come from a plant, and that really is standalone what's being legalized by Illinois and can come out of Colorado. I mean, they're not even pretending to sell CBD anymore. So is this, from a prevention point of view, is this just an attack on people to get another addictive substance into their lives?
I think so. I mean, anyways, when you look at it, like what they've done in Colorado, and I'm going to guess it's probably going to happen in Illinois, you look at how they're marketing it and who they're targeting, and a lot of times it is marketed towards our youth because we know their brains are primed for addiction, and the earlier you start a substance, the more likely you are to become addicted to it. So I feel like them synthesizing it, you know, they want to say it's all natural, but then you look at these things and you can see that they are synthesized. They're now really more manipulated, man-made, so we can make them stronger, get people more addicted at an earlier age, and then you have your lifelong customers.
What's the impact on the community in Clinton County in terms of how many people are really debilitated by experiences with marijuana? I mean, in treatment, in problems at the schools, things like that. What do you see?
What do I see? Talking from, I don't do the treatment world, so since I'm more in the prevention, but going in the schools, we're seeing more even at like the middle school level. More times it was high school, but now we're seeing it at the middle school level where we're taking marijuana off students. So our middle schoolers are 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th, so they're starting young. You know, so we're seeing more of that marijuana getting confiscated from the schools.
And these children really don't know the risks.
And they do not know the risks yet. And again, they think because it's legal and it's all over their Twitter, Facebook, they're seeing Snoop Dogg, their idols.
But you're saying they think it's legal.
Yes.
But you know it's not legal.
Yeah.
And so that's okay.
So since it's legal.
So maybe they think it should be. But,
yes.
okay.
Since they're seeing it being legalized around the United States and different, you know, there's nothing wrong with it, so it's not harmful, right?
Steve, what do you see in law enforcement? Are you encountering youth and kids with similar attitudes?
Yeah, we're seeing more and more people at a younger age using marijuana. And with all the ads and the talk out there, everybody perceives marijuana as harmless. There's no talk out there really about the marijuana, like I mentioned earlier, being 20 to 30 times stronger. It's still the talk that it's harmless, medical marijuana. Availability, it's more available than ever.
In a way like smoking, when they used to say doctors smoke Camel cigarettes, that's their cigarette of choice, or give a kid Coca-Cola when they're newborn and they'll grow big and strong. You know, okay, so we've heard this before.
Correct. It's all a natural plant. It's healthy. It's good for you.
And hidden behind that is a lot of risk that you guys are seeing.
Yeah.
Yes.
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 We come back in the break, we'll address that. When we return, we're going to ask Lord and Steve to connect some of the dots between marijuana and vaping. This could be really dangerous. Stay tuned. You don't want to miss this.
One gig is the future, and Mediacom provides the most complete coverage. America's first 100% 1 gig technology network, offering gigabit speeds in every market we serve. In town or out of town, big city or rural, you've got access to the fastest. We know the future will demand more speed, so we've built a network to give you the most. 1,500 communities, 2.7 million homes, 100% 1 gig.
After the rain stops and the wind dies down, when the fire's gone out and the dust settles, we rise up together and become a force of nature all our own. As part of this community, Mediacom stands with you, doing everything we can not only to restore your service, but to help provide emergency communication access, assist relief efforts, and support our neighbors.
AT&T loves to talk about their 1 gig internet, but you can't get it at Beth's house or John's house. It's not available in JoJo's neighborhood or within 100 miles of the Smith family. The truth is, AT&T 1 gig isn't for everyone. Make sure you have access to the fastest. Switch to Mediacom Extreme and get the future-forward speed you need from the 100% gigabit technology network, the fastest for everyone.
Welcome back to Surviving Bad. I'm Peter Komendowski. You know, now that we've gained a little bit of an understanding that CBD and THC are so different that just calling it marijuana doesn't make any sense. It's easy to see how the issues get confusing. CBD may be good, but THC is certainly dangerous because it gets you high. And a lot of bad things happen when you get high. Let's ask our experts how they deal with this problem. All right, we have a new thing happening. People are getting THC in oils, and they're putting them in vaping products. So now we have two things. You're seeing vaping in middle schools too, right?
Yes, unfortunately we are. In one of our schools just last year, the school resource officer pulled one off a fourth grader.
Fourth grader.
A fourth grader. So it is a problem. The statistics show that, I mean, this issue has increased like 75% over just 1 year. So we are seeing that in the schools and really educating our
These
faculty
are children
and
with
staff.
parents that are letting them vape in fourth grade?
I don't know if the parents know that they're doing it, but yeah, it's an issue. They're getting a lot of vapes. It's easy to get a hold of those vapes. And like I said, again, talking to the students, this is probably one of the biggest issues that they're seeing in the schools. They do it in class. They do it directly in the bathrooms. It's happening very frequently.
So now we've been dealing with this vaping issue from a point of view of nicotine, which we know is really dangerous for kids. But we just found out by a rash of people that are getting severe lung diseases that a lot of young kids are vaping marijuana products with THC.
Yep.
Is that something that's happening in Clinton County as well?
Yes.
Steve, what's happening in law enforcement? Are you running into this?
Well, the thing with these vaping, the vaping devices with marijuana, they make this wax oil now, and it's odorless. So they're using these vaping devices to smoke these wax oil, which is 90% pure THC usually. We mentioned earlier that THC in the plant was 20 to 30 times higher. Now we even go higher. So the wax oil is used right around 90% higher. So people are overdosing on this wax oil, this marijuana wax oil, which is even more dangerous than the plant itself.
See, this doesn't sound like a legal-illegal issue. If there were no laws on any of this stuff and people were hurting themselves like this, we would want to stop that, wouldn't we?
You would think.
Yes.
So this is really fascinating. Now, we have heard of cases now where they're beginning to look at testing for impairment by use of THC, which could be, whether it's vaped or whatever, in terms of auto accidents, especially with fatalities. In Colorado, they now find more traffic fatalities from people that are impaired by THC than alcohol. Are we seeing anything like that here? Are we prepared to be able to test people for impairment?
I don't think we're prepared. I don't think our law enforcements are prepared. I think we're a little bit behind in times when it comes to enforcing a lot of these laws. Talking to the officers in some of the states where there is legalized marijuana, Colorado, they're still behind in times and trying to catch up as well. It's like the Wild West in some of those states. And it's just the people, the fatalities are going up. And we have, the law enforcement is overburdened with their daily duties as it is now, and to take on that task, we're behind in times.
And you guys both have so much of an impact on families, and everything you bring up is about children being hurt this way. Are you seeing that when you find people using marijuana? Are children present? Are you, when you find an arrest, are you seeing this as something that's been normalized and the kids are used to it?
Yes, we are. I mean, we're finding marijuana in a lot of the homes, especially the drug search warrants that we're doing for cocaine, methamphetamine, marijuana are in these homes as well. So it's getting to be a bigger and bigger problem with us, and especially with us where it's going to be legal in the state of Illinois. The problems are going to just get worse for us in eastern Iowa.
Well, what I'm hearing is there's a lot of dangers and risks here and unintended consequences that people need to know about.
Yes.
After a short break, we'll invite Steve and Lauren to share some insights and advice that may help you better deal with marijuana issues and keep your family safe. See you after the break. You don't want to miss this.
One gig is the future, and Mediacom provides the most complete coverage. America's first 100% 1 gig technology network, offering gigabit speeds in every market we serve. In town or out of town, big city or rural, you've got access to the fastest. We know the future will demand more speed, so we've built a network to give you the most. 1,500 communities, 2.7 million homes, 100% 1 gig.
After the rain stops and the wind dies down, when the fire's gone out and the dust settles, we rise up together and become a force of nature all our own. As part of this community, Mediacom stands with you, doing everything we can not only to restore your service, but to help provide emergency communication access, assist relief efforts, and support our neighbors.
AT&T loves to talk about their 1 gig internet, but you can't get it at Beth's house or John's house. It's not available in JoJo's neighborhood or within 100 miles of the Smith family. The truth is, AT&T 1 gig isn't for everyone. Make sure you have access to the fastest. Switch to Mediacom Extreme and get the future-forward speed you need from the 100% gigabit technology network, the fastest for everyone.
After the rain stops and the wind dies down, when the fire's gone out and the dust settles, we rise up together and become a force of nature all our own. As part of this community, Mediacom stands with you, doing everything we can not only to restore your service, but to help provide emergency communication access, assist relief efforts, and support our neighbors.
Welcome back to Surviving Bad. We're talking about marijuana, and as you've heard today, it's more confusing than marijuana sellers want you to think. Our guests have some advice to share with you. Now, Steve, you've been around for a while. What do parents need to know from your experience? Because you're obviously talking about so many young children being exposed to this stuff.
This topic on marijuana, after 30 years in law enforcement, it actually breaks my heart where we're going with this. It's all about money. And the marijuana industry, they're targeting our kids with the gummy bears, the cookies, the different types of marijuana that are out there. I advised parents to do some research, get on the internet, do some research, talk to your local law enforcement. Just do not listen to the marijuana companies, the people that are interested in making big money. Do your own research, find out how marijuana has changed.
Do you have resources through the Sheriff's Department and stuff can help people if they have questions?
Yes, we've been working with the local coalitions, prevention people in our area as well, getting the word out there how marijuana has changed, what type of drugs are out there, the vaping devices we're discussing, the drug paraphernalia and the different devices that are out there. Yes, so we've been working with the coalitions.
Lauren, what advice would you give to parents?
So much. Piggybacking off of what Steve had to say, when you're doing your own research, I would say make sure you're going to a reputable source, not like Weed 420, because they're going to be pro-marijuana. But me, as a parent of 2 young girls, I know how important it is to talk to them early, talk to them often about drugs and alcohol. So I have a 5 and a 3-year-old. I don't think that's too young to start talking to them. I'm not going to overload them with information, but just starting at a young age, giving them information. Drugs is bad for you. It's hurting your developing brain. It can do this. Just little snippets, and making sure that I'm doing this frequently, so it's already starting to get ingrained with them. I don't think parents really know how much their kids look up to them and how influential they can be in their life. So if you start early and you talk to them often about drugs and alcohol, give them facts, give them information. Make sure you have that open communication with your kids. Be honest with them. I think it's going to go a long ways, and hopefully that will help those kids stay
And
off
if
of
they
drugs
have
and
middle
alcohol.
school age children, we can be assured that those kids are experiencing or interacting with vaping and marijuana in school. So parents need to address this. They
Yes.
can't think they're too
Yes.
young.
Yes.
That is true.
Yes, that is true. The younger, the better. I mean, even starting little things in elementary school, because now that we're seeing it happening in middle school, or is it too, is it too far gone now because they're already starting it? So the sooner, earlier you can talk to your kids about the negative health consequences that these vaping, marijuana has on them, the better it's going to be.
Steve, if you could just do anything to solve this problem, just even magically, what would you wish you could do?
Inform people, educate people, because being a law enforcement officer, I know we're not going to wrest our way out of this problem now. I feel like the only way we can do is just like this, talk shows, educate people, let people know the dangers of the drugs, what it does to you.
Thank you very much, and thank you both so much for
you.
sharing today. And thank you for joining us on Surviving Bad. Keep your eye on Mediacom MC22 for our next episode as we explore Iowa stories of survival, hope, and inspiration. Only on Mediacom MC22, your local programming leader.
If you or someone you care about are looking for help with treatment or recovery, there is help out there. Please visit these sites.